My wife secretly inherited $300, $0 from her estranged father. But when I found out she was planning to cut me out of the will, she betrayed me with her best friend and now she's trying to sue me for half the house. Am I about to lose everything over this betrayal? Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be nothing but a liar and a cheat. Honestly, if someone told me a year ago that I'd be discovering she was secretly screwing around with her best friend, I'd have laughed in their face. But here I am, and it's all true. The craziest part. I found out not through some dramatic showdown or a confession, but by pure accident, like a slap in the face I didn't see coming. It started a couple of months ago. Lisa had been acting weird, distant, distracted, snapping at me over small things. At first, I thought maybe she was stressed at work or overwhelmed with her family stuff. She's always been bitchy and manipulative, so I figured she was just taking her frustration out on me. But then, I noticed she was sneaking around her phone a lot more, hiding her screen whenever I looked her way. She'd get defensive if I asked about it, which was unusual because we'd always been open about our phones and messages. One night I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my emails when I saw her phone light up with a new message. I didn't mean to look, but the screen was just in the right angle and I caught a glimpse of the name Rachel, her best friend. The message was flirty, suggestive even. Something about "can't wait to see you tonight" and a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stared at the screen for a second, then slowly put her phone down and tried to act normal. But the seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. Lisa's behavior became more obvious. She was leaving her phone in the bathroom when she took showers, sneaking off in the middle of the night and deleting messages. I caught her in a lie once when she said she was going out with her sister, but I saw her car parked near a hotel that night. I followed her the next day, just to see where she'd go, and she met up with Rachel. They went into a coffee shop, but the way they looked at each other, I knew it wasn't just friendship. Then I found out about the inheritance. Lisa's dad, who had been estranged from her for years, suddenly died, and she inherited $300, $0. I was happy for her, but then I overheard her talking about how she planned to cut me out of the will because I was good enough, or some stupid reason she made up. I confronted her, and she lied through her teeth, saying she didn't know what I was talking about, that she loved me, and that I was just paranoid. But the way she looked at me, the way she avoided my eyes when I pressed her about the money, told me everything I needed to know. It hit me hard. All those signs, all those little lies, and then this inheritance thing. She was planning to leave me with nothing, just like her dad did with her. Meanwhile, she was screwing around with her best friend, Rachel. The worst part, she had the nerve to act like the innocent victim when I finally confronted her. She told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that she deserved better than my suspicions. She even accused me of being jealous of her happiness, she said. But I knew better. I knew she'd been lying to my face for months. The betrayal stung worse than I thought it would. Not just because she'd cheated, but because she'd lied about everything. Her feelings, her plans, her loyalty. And the money, that was just the icing on the cake. She was planning her escape, and I was just collateral damage in her game. I couldn't believe I'd spent so many years building a life with someone who turned out to be so selfish and manipulative. I felt humiliated, angry, and stupid all at once. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the cracks before everything fell apart. I knew. I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not just the affair, her entire scheme to take everything I had worked for. I started planning, trying to figure out what my next move would be. But right now, I'm just trying to breathe, trying to process how everything unraveled so quickly. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. Turns out I was living next to a stranger all along. After I found out about Lisa's affair and her plans to cut me out of her inheritance, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling back to her lies, the way she looked at me with that fake smile, and how she'd been planning her escape behind my back. I knew I had to act fast, but I also needed to keep my cool, at least until I had a clear plan. The first thing I did was dig into her phone and her emails more thoroughly. I needed proof, something concrete I could use if this all went to court, or if I needed to confront her in a way that she couldn't deny. I found messages between her and Rachel that were even more revealing, talking about her big payout, how she was finally free, and plans to leave the house and everything we shared behind. They were exchanging photos, flirtatious messages, and even discussing how she'd get her hands on her father's money before I even knew she was inheriting it. That was the final nail. She'd been planning this for months. Now I had evidence, but I wasn't stupid enough to confront her outright. Instead, I waited. I watched her carefully over the next few days, noting her movements, her calls, her new friendship with Rachel. I also started looking into her inheritance, hiring a lawyer to review her father's will and any legal documents she'd had access to. Turns out, she'd been talking to a lawyer behind my back, trying to figure out how to cut me out legally. That was when I realized I needed to get ahead of her, to protect myself and my rights. One night, I decided to do something bold. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, aimed at the spots I knew she'd frequent. Her side of the bed, the living room where she spent most of her time. I wanted to catch her in the act if she was planning to sneak out or meet Rachel again. Sure enough, a few days later, I caught her slipping out late at night, her phone in hand, heading towards her car. I followed her just to see where she was going. She drove to that hotel again, met up with Rachel, and stayed there for about an hour. That sealed it for me. She was actively betraying me, and I had the proof. I also discovered that she'd been secretly transferring money from our joint account into her own, trying to hide her assets and cover her tracks. That's when I realized I couldn't just confront her. She'd prepared for this. I needed a plan to get legal and financial control before she could do any more damage. My mind was racing. I knew I had to get a lawyer involved, but I didn't want her to find out I'd been spying on her. I had to be careful. I started gathering everything: screenshots, bank statements, the recordings from the camera. I also started documenting her suspicious behavior, her lies, everything that pointed to her betrayal. It was about protecting myself, but also about making sure she didn't walk away with everything, especially her inheritance. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting innocent, accusing me of being paranoid, calling me crazy for suspecting her. She'd even cry and say I was ruining our marriage over nothing. But I saw through her. I knew her game now. She was trying to keep me in the dark, to make me doubt myself, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. All the while, my mind kept circling back to the money. That inheritance was the key to everything. If she got her hands on it, she'd leave me with nothing. No house, no savings, no stability. I couldn't let that happen. I had to act fast, but I also had to be smart. Because if she found out I was onto her, she'd do everything possible to cover her tracks or even turn the tables on me. So I started planning my next moves, consulting with my lawyer, trying to understand my rights, and figuring out how to protect what's mine. I knew she was dangerous now, not just because of her affair, but because of her greed and her willingness to betray everything we built. I felt betrayed, angry, but also determined. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life, my money, or my house, not without a fight. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Lisa wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to wipe me out, financially and emotionally. I started to see how deep her plans went, and honestly, it made me sick. She was pretending to be this perfect wife, acting like she loved me, while behind my back she was scheming to take everything I had worked for. I couldn't believe I was so blind. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the way she was pulling away or the sneaky texts she was hiding. At this point, I knew I had to get legal help. I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in family law and estate disputes. I wanted to understand my rights, especially since she was trying to cut me out of her father's will. The lawyer told me that if I could prove she was planning to deceive her father or manipulate her estate, I might have a shot at contesting her inheritance or at least protecting my interests. It was a long shot, but it was better than doing nothing. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like everything was fine. She'd come home, put on her fake smile, and pretend she was the perfect wife. But I saw right through her. She was more aggressive, more bitchy, whenever I brought up money or the future. She'd snap at me, call me insecure, accuse me of being paranoid. She even tried to gaslight me, saying I was imagining her sneaking out or that I was just jealous of her freedom. Yeah, right. The woman who's been cheating and plotting behind my back was accusing me of being the problem. One night I decided I had enough. I confronted her directly. I told her I knew everything: the affair, the inheritance plans, the money transfers, the sneaking around. Her reaction was priceless. She looked at me with this wide, fake, innocent face, then started lying again. "You're crazy," she said. "You're just insecure. I would never do anything to hurt you." But her voice was shaky and her eyes darted everywhere. It was obvious she was panicking. I pushed her further, showing her the evidence I had collected: screenshots, bank statements, her own texts. She tried to deny everything, but I had her cornered. That's when she snapped. She started crying, blamed me for everything, said I was controlling, jealous, and that I didn't deserve her. She claimed that her affair with Rachel was just a mistake, that it meant nothing, and that she only did it because I was so boring and annoying. That's when I saw her true colors: selfish, manipulative, and completely untrustworthy. I told her I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was going to fight for my rights, for the house, for the inheritance. She scoffed, said I was ruining everything and that she'd see me in court if I tried to take her to court over the money. That's when I realized she was prepared to go to war over it. She had lawyers on her side, probably already drafting papers to sue me for half the house, claiming I was trying to steal her inheritance or that I was mentally unstable. Honestly, I felt a mix of rage and despair. Rage at her for lying, cheating, and scheming. Despair because I knew this was going to get ugly. But deep down, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally saw her for who she was: a selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about herself. I realized I couldn't keep pretending things would get better or that I could fix her. I had to protect myself, my home, and my future. So I started gathering even more evidence: video recordings, financial documents, her own words. I wanted everything documented, just in case this went to court. I also contacted a divorce lawyer, knowing that I needed to prepare for the worst. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house or my money that easily. And honestly, I was starting to think about what life would look like without her. It scared me, but I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic situation anymore. While all this was happening, Lisa's attitude didn't change much. She was still pretending to be the victim, still trying to manipulate the situation. She threw tantrums, accused me of everything under the sun, and even tried to turn the kids, if I had any, against me. But I wasn't falling for it. I was ready. I knew the truth now, and I was determined to fight for what's mine. I just didn't know yet how messy this was going to get or how much more she was willing to do to keep her lies intact. The situation escalated faster than I expected. After confronting Lisa and laying out all the evidence, she went into full denial mode, acting like I was crazy, claiming I was just paranoid and that I was making everything up. She even had the audacity to accuse me of trying to control her, to manipulate her, just because I'd caught her red-handed. Honestly, it was pathetic. She was trying to spin everything so that she looked innocent, but I knew better. I had the proof, and I wasn't about to back down. That night she went into her usual tantrum, crying and screaming about how I was destroying her life, how she deserved happiness, and how I was just jealous because she was better than me. She told me she was going to sue me for half the house, claiming I'd been controlling her and that I'd emotionally manipulated her into staying. I listened to her rant, feeling a mixture of anger and helplessness. I realized this wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about her trying to take everything I had with her lies and manipulations. I decided I couldn't let her get away with this. I contacted my lawyer the very next day. We started drafting legal documents to protect my rights, things like a cease and desist order and preparations for a possible divorce. The lawyer told me that if she filed a lawsuit claiming half the house, we'd have a solid case to contest it based on the evidence of her deceit and her attempts to hide her assets. I knew I had to stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, Lisa was making her move to get her hands on the inheritance. I found out she'd already hired her own lawyer, trying to figure out how to claim her father's estate, even though she wasn't officially named in the will yet. That's when I realized she was planning to push this as far as she could. I couldn't let her manipulate the system, so I started to gather all the legal documents, her father's will, bank statements, proof of her transfers, everything that showed her scheming. One day, I caught her trying to transfer more money out of our joint account. I froze her access, called my bank, and started working with the lawyer to secure the assets. I also made sure that any legal claim she might file would be met with a strong defense. It was like a game of chess, and I had to think several moves ahead. If she thought she could just lie her way out of this or steal what she wanted, she was dead wrong. The worst part was her constant lying. She'd deny everything, then turn around and accuse me of being the bad guy. She'd say I was obsessed, that I was just jealous of her happiness. Every time she did that, I felt a new wave of anger. How could she be so callous? How could she betray me and then act like I was the one causing problems? I was starting to see her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. I also started talking to friends and family, trying to get support and advice. Some told me to fight for everything, to make sure she didn't walk away with my house or my savings. Others warned me that she might try to ruin me legally and financially if I wasn't careful. I felt trapped in a nightmare. I was fighting to keep what was mine, but I knew she had the resources and the manipulative skills to drag this out as long as she wanted. I had to be strong. I had to stay calm and focused, or I'd lose everything. Throughout all this chaos, I kept asking myself how I let it get this far. I thought I knew her, thought we had a good marriage. Turns out I was blind to her true nature. Now I was just trying to hold on to what little I still had, my house, my dignity, and my peace of mind. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I was about to go to war to make sure she didn't win. The fight wasn't over yet, but I was ready for whatever she threw at me. I just wanted it all to be done, one way or another. The legal battle was now in full swing, and Lisa's behavior only got worse. She doubled down on her lies, trying to spin her story, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that I had manipulated her into staying with me all these years. She hired her own lawyer, and suddenly, every conversation, every argument was being documented. I could see she was digging her heels in, determined to hold on to her claim to the house and her inheritance, no matter what it cost. The thing that hurt the most was how she was trying to turn the situation around. She painted herself as the victim, saying I was jealous of her happiness with Rachel, that I'd become paranoid and aggressive. She even claimed that I had been emotionally abusive, which was so far from the truth it made me sick. I knew her game. She was trying to make me look unstable so the court would doubt my claims, but I had the evidence. The texts, the bank statements, the recordings. I had it all, and I was ready to fight. Meanwhile, I kept my focus on protecting my assets. We filed for a legal separation, and I moved to secure the house, making sure any sale or transfer couldn't happen without my approval. I also started looking into the legalities of her inheritance. I found out that since she wasn't officially named in her father's will, her chances of claiming the entire estate were slim, especially with the evidence I had of her scheming. But she wasn't giving up easily. She threatened to sue me for half the house, claiming I'd been controlling her, that I'd made her feel trapped. The court documents were thick, and the fight was only just beginning. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry every day. I kept replaying all the moments I missed, the signs I ignored, the lies I believed. It was like waking up from a nightmare I'd been living in for years. I wondered how I had been so blind to her true nature. But at the same time, I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her walk away with my house, my money, or my dignity. One night, I sat alone in the house she wanted to claim. Everything was quiet except for the sound of my own thoughts. I looked around at what I'd built, what I'd worked for all these years. I realized that No matter how much she tried to take from me, I still had myself, my strength, my resolve. I decided I wouldn't let her destroy what little stability I had left. I would fight her in court, I would prove her lies, and I would come out the other side with my head held high. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of losing it all, my home, my money, my reputation. I was scared of the pain and the humiliation that might come with the court battles. Yet deep down, I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to stand my ground, no matter how messy it got. Because if I didn't, she'd take everything I had, and I'd be left with nothing but memories of a marriage that was never real. As I write this, I realize that the biggest lesson I've learned is trust is fragile. People can pretend for a long time, but eventually their true colors come out. Lisa's betrayal has shown me that sometimes the people you think you know the best are the ones capable of the worst. I don't know how this will all end, whether I'll win the fight or lose everything, but I do know I won't go down without a fight. I owe that to myself, and I owe it to what I've built. No matter what, I'll stand tall. The court dates came and went, and with each hearing, Lisa's lies became more transparent. Her lawyer tried to paint me as the controlling, jealous husband, but the evidence told a different story. The recordings of her sneaking out late at night, the bank statements showing her covert transfers, the texts where she openly discussed her plans with Rachel, everything stacked against her. I could see her frustration bubbling over, her fake tears and angry accusations crumbling under the weight of the facts. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. She couldn't claim half the house, since I had clear proof of her scheming and her attempts to manipulate her father's will. The court also recognized that she was trying to hide her assets and that her affair with Rachel was part of her plan to abandon everything. The inheritance legally stayed with her, and I was awarded full control of the house. It wasn't an easy victory. Emotionally, it was draining, but it was mine. Lisa's reaction was bitter. She stormed out of the courtroom, screaming about how she'd ruin me, how she'd make sure I paid for this. But I didn't care anymore. I knew she was bitter, angry, and probably planning her next move, but I was done fighting her battles. I had fought hard, and I'd won what mattered most: my dignity, my home, and my future. I started the process of rebuilding. I sold the house she wanted to keep, cut all ties with her and Rachel, and moved into a smaller place where I could breathe again. I cut her out of my life completely, no more calls, no more texts. I realized that her betrayal had shown me who she truly was, and I refused to let her poison my life any longer. I learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even if it means losing everything else in the process. Looking back, I see this as a harsh lesson in trust and deceit. I trusted her with my life, my love, my future, and she betrayed me in the worst way possible. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought. I survived the storm, and I came out the other side with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Protect yourself, your assets, and your sanity. Because in the end, the truth will come out and you'll have to stand tall just like I did. It's a long, painful road, but you don't have to walk it alone. Stay strong, keep fighting, and never let anyone take away what's yours.